Hi, and thanks for joining us here today. I'm John from Sharp Mountain Games. Today we're going to take a look at Fate Condensed, and it has 5 authors: P.K. Sullivan, Laura Turner, Fred Hicks, Richard Bellingham, Sophie Lagace. And the art, or at least the interior art, is by Kurt Komoda. And let me show you a picture of the book here. We're going to look inside in a little bit. You can see it's a skinny little book. It's $8 for 64 pages. So now, what is Fate in general? Fate is derived from fudge, which is an older game, although it's still around. It has the exact same dice mechanic. In fact, I'm even going to show you the dice mechanic and how to roll the dice in a little bit. Now, of the two games, fudge is the more traditional of the two. It's a little bit more, like a standard role-playing game. Fudge also is a role-playing game, but it leans a lot more heavily into the cinematic narrative style of gaming. Game masters and players really are encouraged to use fate points to significantly alter what's presented in a scene and how a scene plays out. So what's this Fate Condensed? I mean, is it like condensed milk or what? Currently, there's 2 supported versions of Fate. There's Fate Core and Fate Accelerated. Now, Fate Accelerated isn't a lot different than Fate Core. Really what it is it's Fate Core, but rather than having skills, they focus more on style. So rather than using a skill like deceive or burglary, you would say, well, I'm going to do it in a sneaky way, and it uses those adjectives. So it can be a little confusing as to which version of Fate is which, but they're really all interrelated. So why did I get Fate Condensed and not Fate Core? Fate Condensed, first of all, it's the streamlined version. Fate Core is about 300 pages, and it can be a little bit of a long read. A buddy of mine claims, who has the book, that it can be, it's a little bit wordy maybe. So this is streamlined, but it's also the 2020 version. Fate Condensed is copyright 2020. So the reason I got it was I figured it's the latest version, so it's going to have all the latest rules tweaks. I believe Fate Core was 2013. However, all versions are really Fate. So whichever one you're playing, you are still playing Fate. So let's take a look at how to roll the dice and what's inside the book. So before we start to look at the book, what I want to do is address something that I think is a concern for some people about Fate, and that is, and fudge, that you need specialty dice. And I understand that people don't want to go out and have to get special dice just for a game, especially if you just want to try the game and you're not sure if you're going to like it or not. That's totally legitimate. My way around it is dollar store dice. These are actually, they're pretty small. These are dollar store dice I bought. And all I did was I took some paint, and I have 2 green sides, 2 red sides, and then leave the other 2 plain. And I made 4 of them. So all of this, in my hands is a dime or, 50 cents at the most. So then I roll them, and the colors work great. Okay, pull the whites out because they're zeros. Reds are bad, greens are good. Well, those 2 cancel. That roll is a -1. Try it again. We'll do one more roll. Oh, again. Whites go out. These 2 match up. I'm left with -1. And I actually think seeing the colors is quicker than the pluses and the minuses. So that's just what I've noticed, and the way it seems to me. So you don't have to spend a lot of money on dice. Go to your dollar store, or you probably already have some dice in the house. Yeah, they're not going to be as pretty and fancy as maybe some other dice, but they absolutely do the job for basically next to nothing. So let me set those aside and bring the book here so we can take a look at it. So this is Fate Condensed. Beautiful cover. We have an elf. We have, looks like a magic user, almost a Professor X type. And then we have a space woman there. And on the back, we have the pirate cyborg gorilla that you can easily create in Fate without any difficulty. He'd be great for like a Starfinder campaign. So a few things to tell you about. So here's the book. And it's very slender. You can see this is a small, thin little book. Would fit nice on a bookshelf. Talks about what do you need to play. Are there any changes from Fate Core? Because it is updated a bit from Fate Core. And then, of course, just like you'd think, it starts into, well, how do you create your character? Characters have a high concept, like are they a tough monster hunter might be one, or a logical science officer. Trouble. This is something that game masters can use to either give or take a fate point. Relationship with a connection to another PC or somebody else they know in the story. And then you get a few other free aspects, because aspects are the real building blocks of fate. And I actually think if you were writing fiction, either TV scripts, novels, short stories, these are just great things to think about and great ways to really flesh out a major character. And then there are skills. I believe there are 19 of them, and it gives you the usual skill list and things you can think about. Then every character usually gets like 3 stunts. And these are things that give you an extra bonus, but only in certain situations. Or you can use stunts where you don't roll for them. So maybe like if you want your elves or your dwarves to have infravision, if you're doing a more standard fantasy campaign, you could buy one of those with a stunt. And it talks about how to roll the dice, which we already talked about. And, what does failure mean? What does a tie mean? How to create an advantage, attack, defend. And then it tries to spend a good chapter on aspects to say what are they, and things other than characters can have aspects if you want, what you can do, and how the fate points work. And another thing I should say that's important about fate is if you don't have a full idea of your character, you could still play. You write down the aspects that you do know or want for your character, and then you can just add them as you are in play. And the same thing for skills. Fate's really very flexible in that way. So a lot of this stuff is the things like, how do you resolve teamwork? How do you resolve challenges? How do you resolve what they call conflicts or combat? And how do you defend? Interestingly, you get a fate point. So you get a benefit if you concede. So it's kind of built right into the system that sometimes you should walk away, that sometimes you should back out of a fight if you're overwhelmed. It actually gives you a little reward for kind of smart playing. Now, you may notice there's not a lot of art in here, and it's all black and white. It's nice. It's kind of comic book style. I'm assuming that they did that to keep the printing costs down. Like I said, this book was $8. So, you're not getting the same full glossy paper that you'd get like in a Dungeons and Dragons book, but that's okay. Again, it was $8. How do you do advancement? How do you improve your skill ratings? It's kind of like leveling up. And then we have a section on the game master, or for the game master, like setting difficulties, how to create major versus minor NPCs and big bads, and optional rules. So things that you can add to make your game a little different if you want. If you want more conditions. This is nice. Changing the skill list. Just like the game that it came from, Fudge, it encourages you to tinker. If you don't like their 19 skills, right in here they give suggestions. Maybe you want to go with approaches. So instead of having a skill, you act carefully or cleverly. Or maybe you have certain roles, or they even have themes, air, fire, metal, or your values. There's some different options here, or you absolutely could steal or adapt a skill list from another game if you preferred. Like I'm thinking in terms of if you're running, like, let's say a Star Trek game, you might have security as a skill. You might have the science department as a skill. You might have command as a skill. So you could really tailor it and get the exact flavor you want out of the game, and it encourages you to do that. And that's really refreshing. Here's the thing about character creation as you play. A few more things about how to run the game. Scale. Now, I would avoid scale, I think, at least for an early game or two, because you're probably going to be playing with human or mostly human-sized creatures or people. But it does give you options if you want to do something a little bit different. Ways to break the rules for big bads. What if you want to do armor, or if you want to add a little bit more detail in your weaponry? It's all there. Another nice little piece of art. Again, black and white, but it's nice. And, it talks about licensing, because you can actually, I believe there's OGL and Creative Commons license if you want to write for Fudge. Now, here's really nice. This is a 2-page spread right at the end of the book, super easy to find for game masters. I think you could easily also photocopy it or scan it if you wanted to. This is your basically your Dungeon Master screen or your cheat sheet. And it's right here and easily available. There's the same ladder, very similar to Fudge, although they give some different names to things in here. And they give a lot of, like, here's the cheat sheet on your actions. What happens if you attack? What happens if you defend? And all that. Look at that character sheet. It's beautiful. Your aspects are up here. Here's your stress boxes, which are sort of like hit points. They're a little bit different. And all your skills down here. And then if you have any stunts and lots of room to leave, for if you advance. So I think you can easily see, comparing this character sheet to a character sheet for a lot of other games, how it's a lot less complicated. So that's the book. I mean, for $8, it's a really nice little book. So what are the pros to the book? It's a nice, quick read. It reminded me a lot of older rule books like Mulvey Basic Dungeons and Dragons and Star Frontiers and those older, smaller rule books. Since it's a pretty short book, it's really easy to find things and look things up. I mean, just using it a few times, you'll know exactly where everything's at. And as I showed you in the video earlier, there's that cheat sheet at the end. So it's really easy to find your basic rules right there. Very quick character generation, I think, is another huge plus to something like Fate or some versions of Fudge. You don't need any spreadsheet or character builder software. It doesn't have to feel so much like a science assignment, or an engineering project. What I really liked, and I mentioned it, is that it gives you suggestions for hacking the game. Like if you want to hack the skill list, it suggests maybe you want to add more stress boxes. It's a very sort of indie feel to the whole thing, that you can make adjustments that you want to make the game better the way you'd like it or that your players would enjoy more. It encourages you to tinker. Now, there may be some concerns. Let's talk about those. There's not as many examples as I understand there are in Fate Core, but that's just the nature of the shorter book. They only had so many pages. I do think there were a few things that could have been clearer, and those may be cleared up in Fate Core. I haven't read Fate Core, so I don't know. Like, I don't know if you can use boosts right away in the same turn. I'm not sure if there's any guidance on how many aspects can stack, or if you can stack the same one twice. The initiative order that they have in the book doesn't really say when the enemies go. So these might be things that I missed, but I don't think they're as clear as they could be. A few sample characters would have been nice. I mean, it wouldn't have been that many more pages, but you can easily find those online as well. So the fact that they don't have them in the book, you can easily just go online and do a search. Now, other things that might be a concern for some people is advancement is a little bit different. It's not really a level 1 to 20 game like you might be used to. It's just not quite that thing. And also characters, they kind of have a level of script immunity. If you play it right, they really should be able to retreat if they're in serious danger. It's really not a deadly OSR type game if you're looking for that. And I would stress, you can absolutely play fantasy with this, but it's not like a simpler version of D&D. That's not what the game is. It's a very different mindset. Like I said, it's more like writing a TV show maybe or a movie script versus like D&D 5th edition or D&D almost any edition. And I'm not knocking D&D by any means, but Fate is a different animal. So who should buy the book? If you like narrative games and you want to move away from the bean counting in some other games, this is a good option. This really is a good option to move away from that. Now, I think one of the things about narrative games is some people shy away and they think, well, it's all theater of the mind, and I don't want to play that way. You can use maps, you can use tokens and minis, but it's a little less tactical. You don't count 5-foot square grids for spell effects or anything like that. It's just there's like zones. Are you in the combat zone? Are you in the zone upstairs? It's a little looser than that. If you have creative storytelling players who really like distinct characters and want to bring that into their game, this might be a good option. It's also a good option because the system easily allows you to hop between genres. So if you want to run a one-shot, this is a great way. You don't have to spend 40 or 50 bucks to buy a new 300-page rulebook, 250-page rulebook, learn all those rules. If you learn this, it'd be very, very easy to run an evening of whatever. Star Trek, Star Wars, Supernatural, a horror type game, something like that. You could easily do this with Fate Condensed. And if you really like Fate Condensed and you want a little bit more, absolutely you could look into Fate Core or the Fate System Toolkit. It spends a lot of pages on magic from what I understand. So in conclusion, I liked Fate Condensed a lot. I really enjoyed the book. In fact, I'm working right now on writing an adventure and trying to tweak some of the rules, mostly to make it easier for me as a DM and maybe for some new players. But they're minor tweaks. I don't think they're huge changes. The core is still going to be mostly Fate. So if you think this might be for you, I'm going to put links down below where you can get the book and where you can order it online. So if you like the video, give it a like and subscribe. And if you'd like to support the channel, you can take a look at all the Sharp Mountain Games publications, and where to find those are listed in the description, or even if you just want to take a look, and see what we're doing. So thanks for watching. I appreciate every viewer, and may fate always be kind to you.